Yeah, fine.
All good.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of Lockerbie and Lochmaben Common Good Fund Subcommittee, which is being live streamed and recorded. The recording will be made available on the Council website for public listening. When Annandale and Eskdale Area Committee agreed to establish this subcommittee in June this year, it was agreed that it would comprise 4 elected member appointments, being the 4 Annandale North elected members here tonight, and 2 non-voting appointments being representative from the local community councils. I'm pleased to welcome one of our 2 community representatives here tonight from Lockerbie and District Community Council. We have Helen Haggart. Remote participants, please follow the good practice guidance, which includes muting microphones and switching off your video when you're not addressing the meeting, writing speak in the Teams chat function when you want to contribute. Please don't repeat contributions already made by other members. No material should be posted in the chat function if it is intended as part of the discussion. The usual standing orders apply, including that any votes will be undertaken by roll call. If any member has to leave the meeting, please either leave the Teams meeting for the period of time or write leave in the Teams chat function and then join when you rejoin the meeting so we can keep track on whether the meeting is quorate. All members should speak clearly and directly into the microphone when making contributions, and when referring to reports, please provide reference to the relevant page and paragraph to allow everyone to follow. Please focus contribution on areas where clarification is required or to propose an alternative to a recommendation. So we go to the agenda, and point 1 is the appointment of a chairperson. Do I have nominations for the chairperson?
Sorry, my laptop wasn't coming off mute, my apologies. I would propose Lynn Davis, if other members are agreeable.
Thank you, Gail. Have we got any other nominations? Have we got a seconder for the nomination?
I'll second that.
Thank you very much. So Lynn Davis has been appointed as chair, so thank you, members. And I'll now hand over to the chairperson to proceed with the rest of the agenda. Over to you, Councillor Davis.
Thanks very much for the nomination. So, any declarations of interest?
Can we just cover point 2? Firstly, the Sedgwick apologies and chair's approval of members' remote participation.
Yes, sorry. Sedgwick apologies and chair's approval of members' remote participation. Is everybody in agreement?
Agreed.
I can confirm that we have the following elected members here tonight: Councillor Stephen Thompson, Councillor Carolyn Wilson, Councillor Lynn Davis and Councillor Gail McGregor, and we're also joined by Lockerbie Community Council representative Helen Haggart. We have no apologies.
Okay, so that takes us on to point 3. Any declarations of interest tonight?
Yes, Chair. Sorry, my screen seems to have gone on a split screen. It's quite distracting. I'll need to declare an interest in item 5, as I have family members who are involved with the Squash Club, and such is their involvement that I will leave the meeting for the duration of that particular item. If Stephen Wiley could maybe send me a text when that item's finished, and I'll rejoin the meeting. Thank you.
That's fine. Thanks for that, Gail. We'll let you know. And moving on to point, anybody else, any declarations of interest before I move on? No? Okay. So on to point 4, Lockerbie and Lochmaben Common Good Finance Report by Head of Community Services. Members are asked to, point 1, review the unaudited financial statement from Lochmaben. Oh, sorry, I've just lost my wee. Bear with me. Sorry about that. I'm looking at my papers on my screen and I just clicked out of it. So members are asked to point one, review the unaudited financial statement for Lochmaben Common Good as detailed within Appendix 1. Okay.
Thanks, Chair. Could I maybe just ask of officers, just in terms of the report, happy enough with the figures. I was just sort of wondering a little bit about the loan to Lochmaben AFC, which I think we would have supported at some time in the past. I just wondered if there was a term to that, or if it was just if we know when that gets repaid, or if it's just a sort of outstanding loan that's there for a period of time. It was just to get a little bit more detail on that. And also, in terms of income, are we any clearer in terms of potential income from Lochmaben Caravan Park? And if not, is that something we could bring to a future meeting of this subcommittee, just as an action, maybe to get that information back for members of this Common Good to consider? Thank you.
Chair, if it's okay, can I respond to the comments made?
Yes.
So in terms of the loan, we don't have any more details on that, but I'll seek them from finance colleagues and have them available for the next Common Good meeting. And the income generation for the caravan park, I'll refer that to the chair to see if a further report could be called for.
Yes, I definitely think another report from the caravan park is needed.
Thanks, Chair. There was just one other point, and I think that was just on, there does seem to be an income for Victory Park, or there's £150, I think, credited to that. And I was just wondering, is that, I didn't know if that, what that related to in terms of, it's listed under fixed assets on page 7. And there's numbers there for some of the assets. I wasn't sure if that was income from, like, you know, a fair turning up or something, or using the ground, and again, is there additional detail we might need to get on those elements? And again, I don't know if that needs to be a future report or just details from finance. Thank you.
I'm happy to pick that action up and liaise with both finance colleagues and potentially property and estates colleagues to see if it could be included in the assets report, if that was appropriate.
I think that would be fine, Stephen. Okay. On to point 2, review the audited, unaudited financial statement for Lockerbie Common Good as detailed within Appendix 3.
Thanks, Chair. It's just similar questions. Obviously, we're starting to see now the income from the golf club, which is welcome. And obviously, I don't know if we need to get an update on the lease. I think they were in the process of agreeing that and getting it signed off. So I don't know if that's concluded yet, but obviously that would be good for the security of the golf club and also for the Common Good Fund, if that's been bottomed out yet. And just similarly, are there other incomes within the Lockerbie Common Good assets? I'm just thinking of sites where, again, a fair or a show might sort of be using the land, and if there's sort of income from that the Common Good assets actually generating. So it's just the same point, to be consistent, Chair. Thank you.
No, I think you're right, Stephen.
Chair, I'm happy to come in and respond to the points if...
Okay, that's fine, Stephen. Just come in then.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of the golf club lease, that's still in negotiation between the golf club and our legal colleagues on some of the finer detail. But we can provide either a report or an update at the next Common Good. Hopefully it'll be concluded by then. And absolutely can pick up the same points that were mentioned for Lochmaben assets in terms of the various bits and pieces of revenue. And again, it might be an idea to include it in the assets report, if that's appropriate.
Yeah, that'd be fine. So on to point 3, note the current free income available to spend for Lochmaben is £454 as detailed within Appendix 2.
Happy to note, Chair, but just quickly on the last point,
Mhm.
I know members got an email or were sort of asked about EV charging points at McGerrow Park, which we might come on to later. But it's just on the same sort of point, just to be consistent. Is there a potential there to bring details to members of the Common Good Subcommittee so we're aware of what's been done with the assets and if there's potential revenue being generated above and beyond the sort of cost recovery required for the council? Thank you.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea to get a report in for that.
I'm happy to pick that up as lead officer and ask colleagues to provide that report to the next Common Good.
That's great, thanks, Stephen. Moving on to point 4. Note the current free income of.
You've went on to mute, Lynn.
Sorry, slip of the finger there. So on to point 4. Note the current free income available to spend for Lockerbie is £3,677 as detailed within Appendix 4.
Just to note that it's 3,877.
So sorry, 3,877.
Happy to note, Chair.
Okay. And 5, note the financial objective of the financial plan being to maintain the financial health of the fund and maximise and manage the level of free income available for distribution by the Common Good Subcommittee as outlined from paragraphs 3.2 to 3.3.
Happy to note, and Chair, with your indulgence, it was just a quick question. Obviously, now that there's some free income for dispersal, and obviously we've got a community councillor from Lockerbie Community Council here, I don't know how widely known it would be that there is actually funds now available for potential community groups to bid into in Lockerbie. And if that's something that, I don't know if the Community Council's got sight of that, but obviously it might be something of interest to the Community Council to share with community groups. And do we have a role in that as elected members on this subcommittee?
I think given the length of time that the Common Good has been closed to new applications, that's an action that I'll take to look at how we reopen it in terms of the application process, but in conjunction with Lockerbie Community Council as well.
Thank you.
So
moving on to point 5.
Sorry, Chair.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I popped my hand up. I think just on that point, historically, we did have a process for advertising that there was funds available and potentially sort of closing dates for various applications. So Stephen, if you could sort of deal with that behind the scenes and get the appropriate notices out as well. I mean, we could maybe even contact the local media just to make sure that that is cascaded out beyond ourselves.
Yep, absolutely. Happy to do that.
Well.
Okay, so we're moving on to to agenda number item 5. Lockerbie Squash and Racquetball Club Community Asset Transfer, Common Good Land, Glasgow Road, Lockerbie, DG11 2AR, report by Head of Community Services. Members are asked to point 1, consider the Lockerbie and Squash Racquetball Club asset transfer request as laid out in the Stage 2 asset transfer application, which is detailed in Appendix 1. Business plan accounts, which is detailed in Appendix 2, and project plan, which is detailed in Appendix 3. Point 2, consider the outcome of the officer assessment of the request in relation to the council's requirement to meet the best value as detailed at paragraph 3.5 and the officer recommendation at paragraph 3.10. 3, note the outcome of the social value assessment of the proposed transfer as detailed at paragraph 3.6, and 4, agree an option from those listed at paragraph 3.11 to be recommended to the Finance, Procurement and Transformation Committee.
Just to further note, Chair, that Councillor Gail McGregor's left the virtual room.
That's great, thanks Stephen. Anybody?
Chair, if I may, it's Councillor Thompson here. Just a couple of things in this. So I mean, I think this has been well trailed in terms of the work that's been done to try and support the business case coming forward. It's obviously going through the asset transfer process. I don't have any particular questions on the business case itself. I think my main thing would be about, obviously we'll have to move and agree an option to put forward to Finance, Procurement and Transformation. So I'm open to what other members think about that, but I think obviously would probably be keen to see this go ahead in some form, and whether or not we need to think about conditions or anything like that. But given that the body that would be transferred to would have sort of community-minded objectives within the sort of trust's values, if you like, I think that kind of would deal with a lot of queries. And I think also the costs guidance suggests that we shouldn't really put any onerous conditions on that are unnecessary or sort of overbearing, if you like, in terms of, I can't remember which appendix it is, but it's in the papers there. So I mean, I'd be minded that we recommend that we proceed with the asset transfer, but I'd be interested to hear if other members have a view how best to go forward with that. Thank you, Chair.
Anybody? Caroline? No.
I don't have anything, Lynn.
No, that's fine. I'm quite happy for it to go ahead as well, Stephen.
So just, I mean, I might ask Stephen Wiley if he's just got any sort of additional points he might want to raise. But I think at 3.11 on page 20, it's basically asking us to agree one of the options. I'd suggest probably for the minute it might be helpful to just agree option 1, for example, and then that means it will go to Finance, Procurement, Transformation. So the land marked out would basically be for £1. I don't know if it's what Stephen would say about conditions and things like that, but obviously Finance, Procurement, Transformation has the final decision on this anyway. But if we're all minded to kind of support it going forward, then I think we should. Chair, thank you.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that.
Chair, I'm happy to come in if you would like.
That's fine, Stephen.
Just a couple of comments. Firstly, I would just like to add that while supporting the club, they have demonstrated a real drive and enthusiasm to working through all the various areas required for the submission of this community asset transfer. And the club has been a real joy to work with and really enthusiastic. In terms of conditions, I would perhaps be minded not to put conditions on or too onerous conditions that would stunt what the club are trying to achieve going forward. But that's for this committee's decision.
Yeah, that's fine.
Chair, could I just maybe add a final comment? So happy enough with the advice given by Stephen there. I'm not particularly minded to put conditions on. I think it's better that the land's used as for a positive benefit to the community, and obviously they've demonstrated that they have the wherewithal to sort of to do that. I did wonder though, just a minor point at 3.7.3 and 3.7.2. I think now that people have seen these papers in the public domain, there has been a couple of questions about how well this was consulted on, and obviously there'll be different views about that, and sometimes people only realise that something's been consulted on when it's actually at the point of decision, despite the best efforts of our council team, etc. But so it was just really to get an assurance that or is there any further consultation needs to happen, or is it being concluded? And also, the land, it says, is currently leased to Lockerbie Squash and Rugby Club. So does that mean we lose out on a particular annual income? Because I wasn't sure if that showed up in the previous reports about income. So clearly there has been a lease, or it's currently leased, but I'm not clear what we might lose out, or if it was a sort of pro bono lease, or I don't really know what the value of that would have been that we would miss out on in future. Thank you.
I'm happy to come in on them points, Chair.
Fine, Stephen.
Thank you. So picking up on the consultation part, so just to put on the record, under the current process, we have put out community asset transfer notices which have been displayed since the 10th of August, and they're out for a period of 8 weeks. And my calculations, that takes it to the 5th of October. Now, the locations are Lockerbie Squash Club themselves, Lockerbie Town Hall Notice Board, and the Lockerbie Customer Service Centre in the library. However, I'm happy to pick up an action on me to further discuss the community asset transfer process, and in particular the notices, to see if we can add to that either through social media or newspapers or whatever other means that may let the community see it if they don't happen to visit any of them 3 places on a kind of regular basis. So that's an action on me. In terms of the second point about a revenue income, there is currently no rental income being charged.
Through yourself, Chair. Thanks, Stephen. And I'd be happy. I think it'd be good to make use of our social media, especially as people are still maybe not going back to all the facilities to maybe see these notices. And I think it's normal for people to use social media now. So we might find that we might get more engagement that way. And I'm sure most people would be supportive of this anyway, but it's just to allow that channel. And in terms of the rental income, thanks for clarifying that. Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Stephen. So moving on to point 6 of the agenda, property and assets of Lochmaben Common Good Fund report by Head of Economy and Development. Members are asked to note that point 1, the information the Council holds on the common good assets for the former borough of Lochmaben as detailed in appendices 1 to 11. Point 2, that the public garden King Edward VII Foundation Townhead Lochmaben is still to be considered for inclusion in the list of heritable common good property for the former borough of Lochmaben as detailed in item 3.3. And point 3, the continuing voluntary registration over the Town Hall Lochmaben is still ongoing as in item 3.4.
Chair, I've just sent Councillor Gail McGregor a message to rejoin the meeting, so if we could just give a couple of seconds for that to happen, and also invite Andrew Maxwell from Property and Estates, who will speak to these particular reports.
Do you want me to go over that point again, Stephen?
I would just give it 30 seconds just to allow Councillor McGregor to come back in.
No problem.
Thank you. Chair, that's Councillor McGregor rejoined us, so we can continue.
That's great. So we're on to point 6, property and assets of Lochmaben Common Good Fund, report by Head of Economy and Development. Members are asked to note that point 1, the information the Council holds in the common good assets for the former borough of Lochmaben as detailed in appendices 1 to 11. Point 2, that the public garden King Edward VII Foundation Townhead Lochmaben is still to be considered for inclusion in the list of heritable common good property for the former borough of Lochmaben as detailed in item 3.3. And at point 3, the continuing voluntary registration over the Town Hall, Lochmaben, is still ongoing as detailed in item 3.4.
Chair, is it okay if I raise a question? It's Councillor Thompson again.
Yes, fine, Stephen.
Yeah, no, thanks, and I welcome this report. I think it's good to see the information about the assets and obviously the ongoing work to determine assets that are maybe still to be confirmed one way or the other as being common good in terms of their title. It was just, there's a couple of things here in terms of, I know we're not dealing with the tennis club, bowling club on this day, but it was just the appendix, the sort of last page at the end, where it's talking about the lease of that being leased from 30th of August 2003 for 21 years. That's on appendix 11, page 135. But obviously there's a bit of work underway at the moment just to kind of renew that, and that's the paper that we are now going to have an area committee understand in a week or so's time. So it was just again to get a sense of the value of that, if you like. So if not income, then sort of benefit in kind. And similarly, the caravan park, which we've already sort of we've asked for another report on, but just to get a sense of it's, you know, it says there it's run as a caravan park, but there's no indication of what the value of that is, and I think that's why we need that report, really, just to get a better sense of what income it's generating. That could be, you know, if there's sufficient income and with the right sort of model, it could be benefiting the residents of the borough of Lochmaben. So it's really just to get a wee bit of clarity on that, if that's available. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I can certainly look into those figures for you, that information. I understand that the tennis pavilion is going to the A&E committee on the 28th. It's my colleague Nick Lane that's writing that report. Just to give you a little bit further update in the Lochmaben Common Good legal services, I've got the Borough Charter back. Unfortunately, it's in medieval Latin, and there's not many people within the council that can translate medieval Latin. So at the moment, we're discussing with the Heritage Officer at the Communities Directorate to establish if we can find a freelance Latin translator. And we're also trying to establish if we can find out what the quote will be for providing that service.
Andrew, could you come in with the date of that charter as well, because it does go back some time?
Yeah, I think it's 1612, so it goes back quite a bit, and it's all it is about 4 or 5 pages, and it's just written. It's just a written description of it, so there's no plans or anything like that attached to it. So it's a bit complicated to actually establish, you know, what the actual boundaries are, but we're hoping this once we get it translated, hopefully it'll provide some more information as to what the boundaries could be.
Okay. Anybody else?
Thanks, Chair. If I could come in again, I don't know how best to signal to you, so
Fine, Councillor Thompson.
I'm just coming in. That's really interesting historically, and just I've never known medieval Latin to be a sort of an impediment to progress for us. But I'm aware that obviously in Lochmaben, the town hall is obviously now being used, and there's a lot of a gathering of information for the Heritage Society, and they have got a lot of very local and specialised knowledge for particular historical things. I'm just wondering if there'd be a question to be asked of that group who might be quite interested in being able to help with something like that. But I don't know if we have to go through a procurement process, so maybe all these avenues have been explored already. Thank you.
I can certainly provide them with a copy of the actual Borough Charter itself, so that's not a problem to provide that information. So they can certainly look at it. There's no problem at all with that.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else got any questions? Okay, so moving on to point 7, property and assets of Lockerbie Common Good Fund, report by Head of Economy and Development. Members are asked to note the information the Council holds in the common good assets for the former Borough of Lockerbie, as detailed in appendices 1 to 11.
Chair, can I come in with a wee question, please?
Yes, fine, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Yes, so I'm just looking at the appendix, page 143, appendix 5, and it's McGerrow Park. There's actually a little section there marked on the map with the thick black line bounds at the top of the sort of shape there, Victoria Gardens. I believe that there's a house just been built on that bit of land. So there's a wee drive comes up from Victoria Road, and there's a wee house that's not long been built just up there, I think. I'm just sort of wondering what capital receipt did we receive for that plot of land, and has that been credited to the Common Good Fund? Thank you.
I'm not aware of that land belonging to the council. I'll need to go back and check the actual boundaries and titles to see if that plan is correct. So I'll go back and check the title and the land certificate for that property as well. But I'm not aware of any capital receipt coming in for that, and obviously we would have known for something like that. So I'll need to go back and check with legal services and check the land certificate just to check to see that those boundaries are correct. Do you say it's by Victoria Gardens?
Yes, so through yourself, Chair, it's there's a wee kind of private road comes up off Victoria Road, sort of before you get to the turn off for the surgery, heading towards what would be McGerrow Park, and it's kind of, there's a wee, what's the wee bit? There's a kind of sheltered housing bit, which is sort of in front of it, if you like. But so just behind that, and it's kind of a sort of a house to the rear of houses that are already there. So I gather that's just been built. It's just it's marked on the map. So I'm just wondering what we know about that. If we've disposed of it as what we thought was a council asset, or if it's actually a common good asset, and we've only just discovered that, if you like. So any clarification on that would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay, I'll go back and check the land certificates for that to confirm the position.
And you'll come back to members with that, Andrew? Yeah.
Yes.
That's great. Thanks for that.
Chair, can I ask a question?
Yes,
on
fine.
Appendix
Helen,
9,
yeah.
You've got land at Rosebank Crescent. That's Park
Okay.
Place.
What appendix is that on?
9. I look right onto that park, and that's Park Place. It's not Rosebank Crescent. Rosebank Crescent's the next street over.
Right, I'll need to change that and amend that on our property management information system, but that was the information that was provided on our PMIS, property management information system, so I'll amend those details and change it on the property management information system.
I only know that because my father-in-law, there was allotments there years ago, and that he was the start of that allotments that were there, so that's how I know that.
Yeah, I can change that.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Chair, through yourself, can just one other thing, when we get to McGerrow Park, that the car park has been recently identified as common good as well, just when we were discussing the EV charging point, just to remark that up in the appendix as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anybody else on section 7?
If I can just come in briefly, thanks, Chair.
Yeah, fine, Councillor McGregor.
I think the point's been covered, the car park and the electric charging points, and I have to say we know that all of these maps have been a bit of a work in progress over the last maybe sort of 2 or 3 years, and I think we are beginning to make some really good progress now in identifying, but it's maybe just a case of just double checking our homework, because the map for Rosebank Crescent, it does say land Rosebank Crescent, but then it very clearly says that it's on Park Place, and it's just making sure that all the work that's been done is just checked and double checked. And I think Stephen's right that the plot of land that sits to the back of Victoria Gardens was a plot of land. We need to double check whether that belonged to the council and was part of the old park, or whether it had been sold historically. So there's just a few wee things that need tidied up, but other than that, I'm happy with the report.
Thanks, Councillor McGregor. Anybody else want to comment on item 7? No. So moving on to agenda item 8, any other business deemed urgent by the chairman due to the need for a decision? I can't think of anything. What about anybody else?
Chair, could I just ask for confirmation from our officer here what we've agreed in terms of reports to come back in terms of actions?
Yeah.
I know he's maybe
Yeah.
just kept a wee note of those, but there's a few of them so far. Thank you.
Okay. Andrew, do you want to? You got a note
It'll
of
be
everything?
Stephen. It'll be
Sorry.
Stephen.
Stephen, sorry.
Yeah, I'm happy to come in.
Right.
So just kind of picking up, going back. So requesting an assets report for Lochmaben for each and every meeting of the Common Good, providing an update in each, just to make sure that everything is as it should be, following the comments made just there. We will look to have, if members are in agreement, we'd look to have a further Common Good meeting by the end of the year, which would be inviting reports for both Victory Park Lochmaben and the former paddling pool Lochmaben. Request a report by Property and Estates on the use by funfair, circuses and commercial business on Common Good land in both Lockerbie and Lochmaben. And it was just the same again, requesting an assets report for Lockerbie for each and every Common Good meeting going forward, and the same with the fun fairs.
Okay. That's great.
Oh, sorry, and
Thanks, Stephen.
the caravan park in Lochmaben, just giving an insight into that as well.
Okay. Thanks, Stephen. Anybody else? Is that everybody quite happy?
Yeah, very happy, Chair.
Okay, so I'd like to thank everybody for coming to the meeting tonight and draw the meeting to a close.
Brilliant.
Thanks very much, everyone.
Thanks.